was not even given the opportunity to appear in court. So I was a very bad man through the election, and after the election, it was suddenly discovered there was nothing to charge me for. By then the damage was done, and here we are again. So my purpose this evening is to share this with you. So rather than take the approach I took the last election, I'm prepared to stand here, I'm prepared to tell you the story, how it occurred, my side of the story. And I'm not just prepared to stand here and tell you this. I've given you handouts with evidence, and I have much, much, much more. And I'm asking the Caymanian people, the voting public, the residents and everyone else here to support one thing that I have, one thing, one cause I have. And that is for me to get a fair trial, for me to get justice. And I want that justice through one way. I want the governor to agree that rather than, I've been told by members of the media on Friday that the plan is to have one of the local accounting firms conduct this investigation and probe into the 36 megawatt generation bid issue that I've had them finally realize that they must investigate. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I really don't believe there's many accounting firms that DART will not have some control over, or Dan Scott will not have some control over. So what I'm asking the governor to do is simply allow us to have a true independent investigative team of 3 people. One he will select, one the ERA board selects, and one I will select. I'll pay for mine, they pay for theirs. If I cannot prove to them, one, that the Auditor General covered up theft of government funds by the now acting managing director, and they can disclose that publicly if it's a lie, if I do not produce that evidence once the investigation begins with the 3-man probe. 2, that Mr. Miller, and you have the email there that Ezra Miller attempted to sell some work permits to the Ritz. That needs to be investigated as well. And this is key in all of this, because when I presented this to the Commissioner of Police, he accepted it. You'll find a copy of that email in that packet as well, and his response. But nothing has been done. So even if there is no proof that Ezra was at the time the chairman of the work permit board, he needs to produce his business license for him. Eddington Powell, Steve Scott, and Jerry says we owned the company and we were a human capital resource group to provide labor for people. So again, if he can't do that, that is in itself also a breach of law that should have been investigated. So I bring that up initially for one purpose, to demonstrate to you that the police, the Commissioner of Police is not acting as he should. The governor, in my opinion, is preventing this from occurring. So I want to take you back now to when I was first employed by the ERA. When I went on board, the 36 megawatt firm generation, it's called firm generation because they was not allowed to have renewable energy included in it. So it's all fossil fuel, all diesel generation. Had already been sent out, circulated, and the 3 companies to bid on it had already been qualified. Those 3 companies were Navasoda out of the US, CUC, the incumbent, and the Deco Group, which is a subsidiary of DART. The bids began to come in, and I insisted that 2 independent consultants be hired. One was out of Jamaica and the other out of US, and I did not make either one know that they had been hired as consultants. And the third party would be the 2 staff members that worked within the ERA for me. So 3 separate bodies were reviewing these bids to select the best bid. And the process was actually quite simple. It wasn't just price, it was operations, it included environmental impact, and you were awarded points based on certain criteria in the metric. So I gave a deadline for those to be returned to me, and when the deadline arrived, all 3 came in at once, as I had intended. There were slight discrepancies in some of the language and some of the thoughts, but through a conference call between myself, the 2 independent consultants and my staff, those were very clearly and easily cleared up. And the best bid was the DECO bid. At the time, the ERA board had not been constituted. We didn't have sufficient members to call a meeting and present this to them. So Cabinet was working on selecting individuals to put on the board. Because I believe that ministers should be informed, I sent information to Minister Juliana O'Connor-Conley, at the time's chief officer, to inform them that we did in fact had a preferred bid and that it was the DECO group. So this went on for, I don't know, a month, 2 months or so, and we finally made a presentation to the new board and recommendations that DECO be awarded the bid. So that was done, and when we did that, it was a Saturday afternoon. We held a board meeting on the Saturday. That was done, and immediately following the meeting, I alerted all 3 of the bidders that DECO had won and thanked the other 2. For the next couple of weeks, the next phase was for DECO and CUC to meet because they had to agree on a power purchase agreement, meaning that CUC had a cost that we had agreed to allow DECO to connect to their grid. And there was other incidentals that they had to work out with DECO. DECO had identified for the generation the property directly across from the CUC main offices. This is also important because of the owner or previous owner of that property being a member of Cabinet. This began to be a problem with getting the 2 companies to meet and agree. CUC became extremely belligerent, and CUC began to attempt to bully DECO and the ERA into agreeing that there should be an investigation and that they would not meet at the table. So I took the steps that on the Friday, March the 1st, to inform CUC that if they did not come to the table with DECO and begin the negotiations, I would pull their license and liquidate their company. And the ERA law does permit me to do that. It permits me to do that should the incumbent or anyone prevents a legal approved agreement to occur. So they responded and agreed that they would meet. I then, at 3 o'clock that evening, I know it was 3 o'clock because I was to pick up my youngest child from school, and I had to get my wife to do it. So I met with Cameron Graham of DECO, and I explained to him that the issues with CUC had been resolved, and he was to go to the table, begin the negotiations, and if he did not do so and agree in cooperative way, I would look frowningly at him, and he must go to the table. CUC would in fact be dealt with by the ERA. And there's a copy of that email that I sent to him. This is March the 1st. On Saturday the 2nd, I sent him the email thanking him for the meeting, outlining what we intended to do with CUC and how we would approach them. During the March the 1st meeting with Cameron, at the end of the discussion regarding PPA, he tabled an unsigned document saying there was a typo in their bid. When he said typo, I said, is this irrelevant, really? I thought he meant a word. He said, no, we have a typo with our price. And I said, well, how bad? And he said, we should have put 0.27 and instead it's 0.00027. So I said, you're off by 1,000th of a decimal point. You have a problem and you have 2 choices. 1, live with it, or withdraw, and I'll award it to the next one. On leaving, I got a call from a board member informing me that he was aware of this and we needed to talk about it. I also got an email from my staff member saying that he had been notified, and then I responded saying, yes, I'm leaving Cameron now. You need to recalculate the numbers and I need to see what this looks like. How bad is this? Is their price way off? Or you have to understand in the metric, the price could have been anywhere and it could have been irrelevant, really. It could even drive it down, depending on where it was in the metrics. But it wasn't an area that made their price sky high. So he called me, the staff member, Louis Bouchard, called me up and he said, it's really bad. And I said, well, it doesn't matter. I've already told Cameron he has two choices: live with the price or withdraw the bid. And no one, and I responded by email saying no one is to fix this bid. This is important because when you look at the Stewart's lawsuit threat entitled His Excellency the Governor versus Joseph F. Ebanks, he makes reference to it. And that was done well in advance of me notifying you all that there was an anomaly with this bid and some corruption going on. So he actually makes reference to me saying in the email, no one is to fix this bid on March the 1st. This is why I have a problem with Taylorism, really. So this is Friday evening. I leave, it's rather late now, I'm going home, and I receive a telephone call from Emil Scott. And Emil Scott says to me that, he gets on the phone and we exchange pleasantries, and he says, you're going to be suspended. And I said, from what? Politics? And I'm joking. And he said, no, you're going to be suspended from the ERA, and the last thing we do, we'll see you go to jail. And I paused and I said, is this a joke? And he said, no. Now, we had some back and forth with he and I in the C4C, but I didn't think it had gotten that far. I thought they were man enough to handle the politics, but obviously they were not. And then I became extremely loud and aggressive. In fact, my final words to him, the conversation went on for some time. I mean, we were back and forth at each other. And I finally said I was going to turn around, I was going to drive back to the doghouse, I was going to park my vehicle in the shadows, and every 30 minutes I would walk to it, and they should shoot me in the back of my head, because if you go down this road, I am going to break you all into little pieces, and I am going to destroy you. Because I didn't do this the last time. I took this, I waited for my day in court that never came. I am not prepared to take this road again. So that's Friday evening ends. I posted on Facebook that I had received a threat. Saturday morning I get up, I post it again. 10:30 or so, I think 10 o'clock, it's in your packet. I send the email to Cameron, thanking him. At this time, I still have no issue with the Cameron bid, other than you need to tell me what choice you're going to make. Live with it or withdraw. And I haven't seen the final recalculation. So I'm still waiting for Monday, and this is not really an issue. So I go to meet the board member, and I meet with the DECO group. Javi, they're saying they can't hear. It's not loud enough. They should come and sit in the bleachers and ask me questions. Yeah, I agree. You should come in. Yeah, come and sit on the bleacher, grab the mic there and ask me questions and stop me at any point. I'm chatting with the people in front of me. So it's Saturday. I meet with the board member, and he and I meet with DECO in this back and forth, and I find out for the first time that I am expected to fix this bid. The first amount offered was $200,000, and then it was $300,000. It gradually went up until I left at $500,000. Now, you have to understand that in my position, being Joe Ebanks, I can't take that. I can't do that. Okay? There is no way that I can or would. I just can't. I get upset. I leave. The board member leaves with me. We go to Havana Cigar Bar. We order pizza from next door. We have pizza. We have some drinks. And I post once again the threat I received from the C4C members. And he himself, the board member, reads it. He laughs. During the conversation there, he asked several times, are you sure we can't resolve this? But those are questions board members should ask the MD. Those are not questions demanding anything. Those are just questions, right? At about 2:30, I don't know anymore. I had to leave. I told him I had to go home. He said he had to go grocery shopping. And I left. When I got to Kentucky, KFC, I get a call from Patty that she had a little business and she needed some assistance. She wanted me to help her with some customers and show her how to redo her business plan. I asked where she was. She said she was in Prospect. And for clarity, look, this lady is just doing her job, okay? That's all she's doing. She serves people, she makes money, and she needs to make money, right? She needs to feed her household too. So she's in Prospect. I said, I'm on North Church Street. Come through South Sound. I'll go up through South Church Street and meet you by the the public beach on South Church Street, Smith Cove. So I park in the parking lot at Smith Cove. I go back online with my iPad, Facebook. Of course, you know, I love Facebook. So I'm on Facebook chatting, maybe for about, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes. I call her back and I said, you know, Pat, I thought you were Prospect Ridge. She said, I'm right behind you. And I look up in the mirror, she's there, I put the phone down, I get out, walk to her, and she greets me by saying, for what McKeever did to me, and because I'm a proud member of the C4C, I'm happy to serve this on you. And when she did so aggressively. And I smiled and I took it and I opened it. And she said, oh, by the way, I don't know what's in this. So I took it, opened it up, and I said, well, it's the suspension from the governor's office. A copy is in there, and it's key that you know two things. One, the date. 2, 30 minutes after saying for the last time, no, I'm not going to fix this bit, I got served the following day on a Saturday by a lady who called me on my cell and obviously had it all day long. Okay, it's Saturday. No one's at work. You can easily find me. You had my cell numbers. You got me at 4 or 4:30 in the evening, whatever time it was. So you could have called me at 9 o'clock and found me. I am of the opinion that that board member called and said he has said no for the last time, because one of the other things I said to him was, if any member of the board attempts to fix this bid, I am going to the media. So I threatened in that manner. Said no, and the calls occurred to serve me my suspension. Of course, I immediately sent an email after I got it to my board asking why I had been suspended for misconduct of office. I don't know what misconduct of office meant. I thought it was because I had verbally reprimanded my deputy a few weeks before, or a few days before. And there was no response. I sent a second email to the ERA board. I copied the DECO group, the CUC group, and 2 ministers of cabinet, Minister Klein Glidden and Minister Mark Scotland. And I said, you all have no idea the rage you have just created. I am going to now expose everyone, and I'm going to find the evidence and produce it to expose everyone who is connected to this bid. It is beginning to dawn on me that this is not coincidence anymore. Okay, these things are just falling in place systematically as I go through my day. And of course, I went into somewhat of a rage on Facebook as well. Thank God for Facebook, Mark Zuckerman, the ability to get your information out there in the world, because I can tell you today, with the exception of Vibe selling me time, no media house will speak to me, okay? None. None whatsoever. I have tried 6 times. I have sat at CITN 6 times trying to tell them the story, and they refuse to interview me. 6 times. The only condition I impose on them is that it must be live, because you're going to chop it up and you're going to make me sound like a criminal, so I will not do it and pre-record. So I'm in this rage. I go and you'll see a WhatsApp there from Klein Glidden, and you'll see, I left it the way it was because you'll see that we were friends. You'll see that correspondence and chats in there. It's clear that he and I were friends. And I don't mind telling people that Klein, McKeever Bush, and I were friends. Okay, we were good friends. And he's trying to tell me, you know, what's up. It's not about the bid. He's trying to get me to be quiet. And there's also, on my Facebook page now, there's a recording that I'm going to get Javi to play a little bit later, because it occurs later on in the story. And that's the board member I spent the day with, who is also trying through Facebook to get me to shut up, hey, call me. So I finally go and I tried to kill CG. I guess the police is here that is arrest me now for attempted murder. And I tried. He ran between cars. I couldn't catch him. He ran when I chased him. I chased him in my truck. I couldn't catch him. He ran in between another cars. I tried to kill him. All right. Very, very, very much I wanted to get my hands on this guy. I left, finally went home, and this is now Sunday, and I sit and wait for the police. In fact, I think once again, I say on Facebook repeatedly, I'm waiting for the police. I know what the next phase is. And 4 days later, at about 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 or 8 of these guys show up. Of the 8, there is 1 Englishman. I have there for you
a copy of my search warrant, and I've also blown up the sections that are relevant. So I don't know, it's either 6 or 8. My son says it's 10. My wife said it was 6. I like the number 8 in the middle. I didn't count them. I didn't care. I was expecting them. So when they came in, they came first with a drug dog, and they swept the entire house. And the gentleman handling the dog went back to the front door. He stood there. And then they began a physical search. At this stage, I'm reading the search warrant, and I called the chief inspector over, and I said, I think you made a mistake. Maybe you have my warrant in the car. This is not me. He says, oops, we can fix that. And he crosses out the name, he writes mine in, and he initials it and gives it back to me. At this stage, I say, okay, I'm going back to sleep. Wake me when you're done. Because this, I know precisely what's going to happen now. I know it doesn't matter, and I have no bone to pick within the RCIP part. With the exception of the gentleman with the drug dog, I didn't know anyone there. I'd never met any of these police officers before. So, while this is occurring, they're doing a physical search. The English gentleman picks up a pack and he says, and what's this? And I said, it looks like a pack of cigarettes. In fact, I reached for the cigarette inside because I'd just woken up my smoke. And he said, it's a utensil and has just been used. So I stepped back and I said, okay, go ahead. And I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, go ahead, do what you have to do. We'll deal with it later. And I returned to my recliner and I reclined again. About 4 or 5 minutes go by and the chief inspector comes over, the detective inspector comes over, and he asks the age of my son. And I tell him he's 18. He said, well, I'm going to arrest your son, I'm going to arrest your wife, I'm going to arrest you for this weekend. And I said, no, you're not. I'm going to take full responsibility. It seems to me, 18, this is who you came for. You're my child and my wife out of this. Let's finish this with just us. So he said, well, you know you can't use that when you go to court. And I said, this is you can't have me taking me too. You can't threaten to lock up my son, lock up my wife. When I say That's a recording from a member of the board who was interviewed by the police and called me the next morning and said, "This is what occurred." You just heard it. Like I said, that one is full of recording. Now, here is where this really gets out of hand. One, at this stage, I was suspended on March the 2nd. On March the 6th, I was arrested and jailed on March the 7th. There's a copy of my bail bond in there, so it shows you the date that I signed. Then I get an email to get involved, and I asked that one of the programs I was working on was residential solar, and I created this program that would allow for 4 megawatts of solar panels to be spread across the country for residential use. And I had tried to get a list from the social services of their clients so we could begin there and try and reduce the cost of electricity to poor people and the single moms and seniors. So this program was near and dear to my heart. So I inquired as to what was happening. You'll see copies of the email in there where Minister Clinton copies the current premier and her deputy chief officer and the writes directly to the chairperson of the ERA, Ms. Sherry Bodenford, inquiring if I could be included in this discussion. You can follow the email. So this goes from that conversation all the way to me helping the chairman of the board set an agenda for a board meeting. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if someone steals from me or suspected of stealing from me or is suspended by me or arrested by me, I sure as telling I let them back into my company. But they let me and asked me to come and help them fix a board agenda, set board agenda. Now, I do that. The residential solar program is still in the air, and that's moving forward. But the point is that I am being accused because of what transpired with the bid and the individual who is so heavily connected. I am of opinion, and I said it, that the governor is connected in some way to this. One, the Stewart's letter threatening to sue me makes mention by the governor and says His Excellency the Governor versus Stewart Evans. It's not the governor in cabinet, it's the governor. And this is because of, he got angry with me because I insulted him. But he threatened to sue me, and he makes reference to the March the 1st email about fixing the bid. And the second thing he threatened to sue for was the mention in the Cayman Net News that I said he was trying to destroy Cayman. So I told him he should go to Cayman Net News. I have no shares in it. They printed it. So they didn't have to. And they told us to go and sue them. But those two incidents were to shut me up. I was supposed to be so afraid that I was shut up. The other problem that I discovered was something that I don't think anyone saw. And I certainly didn't see it before. It was the connection between secrecy, His Excellency the Governor, and Dan Scott. Now you need to take a look at the newspaper article. I'm not making it this up. I'm taking stuff off the web that is in the newspapers that have been in the newspapers before. There is an article there with the offshore alert. There's an article there with the Caymanian Compass where Mr. Scott, Dan Scott, was sued for some 21 million or 20 million. Let me tell you how that story went now. There was a company, Hiles for something. The gentleman's name is Rowe, Louis Rowe. And his company, and here's how this works. Whenever someone who has a publicly traded company or a company in Cayman, financial company, and is suspected of any criminal activity or wrongdoing. The complaint goes to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General will then go through the courts to take possession of the company. That then the company is then placed into the control and possession of one of the accounting firms on Ireland, who proceed to then hold it till the case is complete, and if the individual who's being accused is found guilty, they liquidate the company. Okay, that's the process. Here's the problem with this one. One of the Ernst & Young partners makes the complaint to the Attorney General. The Attorney General accepts the complaint and seizes the assets. The assets are then placed into the hands of Daniel Scott of Ernst & Young, Dan Scott, because I obviously think I'm afraid of him, but it's Dan Scott. The Compass article makes this clear. When this gets to the Grand Court judge says, you cannot do this. You cannot have the complainant have possession to liquidate. It must go to another accounting firm. So it transfers to KPMG. But guess what? The man's assets, or some of them, have already been sold. They're gone. That's why Lewis Rowe is suing Daniel Scott, who took possession of his assets. This case was settled out of court. Now, I haven't been charged yet, but Dan Scott sure has settled out of court something that amounts to theft. Okay? You had the man's assets, you sold them, it was illegal to sell them, and you settled out of court. When settled out of court, that's admission of guilt in my book. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, that's admission of guilt. Dan Scott sits as the chairperson of the Legal and Judicial Committee, which heads up all of the court system.
How much money was it?
21 million.
One
So,
question, please.
Go ahead.
Going back to the governor, how the governors afford financially to put Maples and Cordas as a lawyer for him?
Actually, the governor's lawyer that sued me, or is threatened to sue me, was Stewart's. Maples is Dan Scott's lawyer, so Dan has threatened to sue me as well. But to show you how we get there, this is what I'm exposing as respect to Dan. So we have the governor that all of the court system initially reported to. He has appointed in 2010, and there's a newspaper article in there, there's a Cayman 27 article that speaks to this, where Dan has been appointed as chair of the Legal and Judicial Committee. And it comes with the responsibility and the authority and power to hire and fire the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and the prosecuting office. I think Cheryl is that person now. So he has control to discipline the entire court system, the prosecuting arm, the entire judiciary. 2010. Now, I've received a lawsuit from the governor based on an email I sent saying no one will fix a bid. On March the 1st, while I'm still the managing director and has the authority to say no one will fix this bid, so he threatens to sue me for sending that email. 2, for comments made afterwards in the Cayman Net News that the governor was going to destroy Cayman. So that's his reference to it. Then the second lawsuit comes from Maples, and that one is from Dan Scott, and it referenced some stuff I'd said on Facebook. And here's what I said on Facebook. Dan Scott is head of the judiciary. He has had this issue with this lawsuit. He's settled out of court. His brother Jude Scott is a candidate for the C4C. His brother Emil Scott called me and threatened me, and he's an executive member of the C4C. And what we have today is that Dan Scott, 1, is chairing and has control of the judiciary. 2, if the C4C wins the majority of seats in this upcoming election, they will have control of Parliament. When they get control of Parliament, they will get control of Cabinet, and they will control the 3 arms of democracy in this country. And it's over. In the past, the only way, people who have had this in the past has been Hitler and Mussolini. And the only way to get it back has been through bloodshed. Obama cannot in any way tell their judiciary who to charge. He can't. He can get up and he say, oh, I think you should make this decision. He can say what he likes, but he has no control. In fact, the Americans frown on him even saying that publicly, that he's trying to influence the judiciary from his position. So they frown on it because they fear it. When any one person gets those three, you're going to have major problems. No human being alive has ever and will ever be able to manage that amount of power. You have absolute power now. You have power that is so great that Mr. Rankin is sitting there, they can simply go and seize his assets, lock him up. They have control of the police, they have control of the courts, and find him guilty. He can make a complaint to whom? Cabinet? Ah, we have control of the cabinet. Parliament? Ah, we got control of Parliament. Where are you going to go? They got control of every single thing. Police, courts, cabinet, and Parliament. That's what I said. Looks like there is a conspiracy to create. Because it's there. The man is already chairman. He has this issue. He should have been removed as chairman when he settled out of court. Removed. And he is supporting his brother as a candidate.